Welcome to The Explainer. You ready for this? We're going to tackle the entire history of humanity in just 5 minutes. Seriously. And what you're about to see is a story of almost unimaginable slowness, followed by an explosion of speed. So how are we going to do it? We've broken it down into 4 main parts. Think of it as a story that just keeps getting faster and faster, from our earliest days right up to, well, right now. All right, take a look at this graph. It might not look like much at first, but this simple line tells the most important story there is. Our story. This population curve is basically our map for the next few minutes. Everything hinges on this. So, let's start with that long, flat line. For almost all of our time on this planet, 99% of human history, this was it. Just a slow, steady, gradual existence. Nothing really changed generation after generation. Really think about that. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years where our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. They were constantly on the move, spreading out from Africa in these small family groups. And their population numbers? Barely budged. But here's the thing. Just because the population was flat doesn't mean nothing was happening. Far from it. Our ancestors were developing language, incredible art like this, complex tools, and even spirituality. They were smart, they were adaptable, and they managed to spread across pretty much the entire ice-free world by about 12,000 years ago. And then, everything changed. Something clicks. A totally revolutionary idea starts to spread, and it's what creates that first little bump you see on the graph. It might look small, but trust me, it's a huge deal. That bump? That was the agricultural revolution. For the first time ever, we stopped running after our food and figured out how to grow it ourselves. This completely changed our relationship with the planet and with each other. Just look at the difference here. Going from the world of cave paintings to the world of settled societies was a massive leap. It was so huge, in fact, that we had to invent brand new tools to deal with it all. Take writing, for instance. You can't run a complex town or city without it. So the key thing to get here is that farming was never just about food. Nope. It was the spark that lit the fire of civilization. Suddenly, you had extra food, surpluses, which meant not everyone had to be a farmer. People could become artisans, soldiers, priests, you name it. And right on cue, what happens next? The first great civilizations start popping up all over the world, usually along these fertile river valleys. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, they all built their foundations on this new way of life. Okay, so for thousands of years, these civilizations were kind of their own little worlds, but that started to change. Let's look at how these separate pockets of humanity began to connect and weave themselves into one big, messy, global story. You had these massive empires rising and falling, and with them came connections. Sometimes it was through trade, like the famous Silk Road. Other times, unfortunately, it was through war. But either way, ideas, technologies, and beliefs started to travel like never before. And these empires left their mark, right? From the incredible pyramids in Egypt to the mind-bending philosophy coming out of ancient Greece. They laid the groundwork for so much of what we still see in our cultures today. But then, in the 15th century, an invention comes along that's going to connect the world in a totally new way. Not with roads, not with ships, but with information itself. I'm talking, of course, about the printing press. And this was an absolute game changer. Get this. Within just 50 years, 50, of the printing press being invented, there were something like 9 million books in print in Europe. Can you imagine? This explosion of knowledge basically slammed the door on the Middle Ages and kicked off the scientific revolution. Which brings us to our last section, and if you look back at our graph, this is the part where humanity pretty much straps a rocket to its back. This is the story of the last couple of hundred years. By the time we hit the 1700s, all that accumulated knowledge and tech finally boiled over into the Industrial Revolution. And, well, you can see what happened to our population curve. It goes vertical. It completely rewrites the rules of human history. And it wasn't just population. In what is basically a blink of an eye in historical terms, everything accelerated at this just dizzying pace. And that acceleration brought both incredible progress and some really big problems. Yeah, this new speed created massive opportunities, incredible wealth, but it also created new dangers, terrifying dangers. The power of our weapons just skyrocketed on a scale that was completely unimaginable before. leading us right into the atomic age. And just when you thought things couldn't get any faster, the late 20th century gives us the information age. The internet connected the entire globe almost instantly. It was like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire of change. So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that the slow, stable world, the world that was normal for 99% of human history, where your grandkids' lives would be almost identical to your grandparents, that world is gone. It's ancient history. You and I, we're the first generations in all of human history to live in a world where massive, world-altering change doesn't happen over centuries. It happens within a single lifetime. Sometimes it feels like it happens in a single decade. And that's the challenge we're all living with right now. This incredible, unprecedented speed has created the modern world, with all its amazing opportunities and all its scary risks. And it leaves us with one heck of a question. What happens when that curve gets even steeper?